All right, knife again. So, this is so long. I don't even know what this one is supposed to be. Design an enterprise governance strategy. Oh, alright. I'm gonna try to make this one fast because honestly, I don't have the energy to do 3 streams in a day. Um, yeah. So RBAC, Azure policy, limit access to Azure solution, and which method is right for your security goals. All right, let's do this. All right, so okay, security engineer uses enterprise governance tools and policies to manage and maintain a secure Azure solution. Some common tasks are designing an Azure access hierarchy and using RBAC role-based access control and Azure policy to control and manage access. And just to highlight it, role-based access control. Creating blueprints of secure deployments that can be reused. Okay, skills measured. Configure subscription and resource permissions. Configure resource group permissions. Configure custom RBAC roles and identify the appropriate role and interpret permissions. You good? You good? It's not yours. It's my donut. It's my donut. It's my donut. You can't.
No.
You can't have it.
Sorry. Sorry.
What's happening? What's happening? Goosey, attack! Attack! Anyway, okay. All right. All right, in this module, we will explain the shared responsibility model and how it impacts security configuration, create Azure policies to protect your solutions, and configure and deploy access to services using role-based access control. All right, responsibility model. Okay. There you go. Okay, I think this is all we need. Responsibility on-prem. Oh, you know what? It reminds me. That as a service. If you've heard pizza as a service, I really like pizza as a service. It's such a great way of explaining this and whose responsibility it is. So instead of using IIS, BIS, mobile, blah, 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 let's just look at pizza as a service first, because I think it really explains the idea. Traditional, on-premise, you're responsible for everything. You're responsible for all the ingredients. You're responsible for the dining table, the soda, the electric, the gas, the oven, the fire, the dough, the tomato sauce. You're responsible for everything. 100% responsibilities. Now, when you move to as a service, you share that responsibility more and more with a service provider. So infrastructure as a service, then you get the basic, right? The basic stuff, the base provided to you. So here, pizza dough, tomato sauce, toppings, and cheese. You basically get like a pizza, right? That's the frozen pizza that you would get. The infrastructure as take and bake. Okay, sorry. Yeah, take and bake, frozen pizza, same thing, right? They give you the pizza, and it is your job to own the oven. It's the job to make sure the oven is working and the table and all that stuff. Then you have delivery, where it's your job to basically eat. You order and then you eat, and then you have dining out, where you're just somebody is fully responsible, and all you have to do is eat. So, no, It's fine, Boris. I'm here. It's it's all that it's all that matters. Just come anytime you want. I'll be here. All right. So now let's go back to our uh, shared responsibility model type of thing. Um, so basically, the when you have on-prem, all the physical infrastructure, all the way to the information and all that stuff, is your own responsibility. When you do to infrastructure, the physical hardware is the cloud provider responsibility. Your the 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 service and the data is your responsibility. So some shared apparently, yeah. When you go to platform as a service, you have some shared network application and things like that responsibility that you share with the provider and yourself. But yeah, and then for software as a service, you're responsible for the data, some of the identity. In this case, like you would be like Azure AD. They're responsible for making sure everything is secure, everything that is in the backend is secure for your identity. You are responsible for providing the identities. So yeah. So regardless of the deployment, you will always retain responsibility for the following: data, endpoints, accounts, and access. Yeah, and the way I see it is the more certifications you do, the more overlap you're going to have with everything. So yeah, very good point. I feel like the more certifications I will take, the less studying I will need to do because it will basically be the same thing over and over again. Um, but anyway, it is important to understand the division of responsibility between you and Microsoft in the software as a service platform, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service deployment. Yes. Well, are you? How was the donut? Gigantic. It is. Look, it's gigantic. I still have some. Sorry, people don't understand the context, but how was the donut? I still have some. It's gigantic. Just so much donut in there. No, no, no. You will die. You will die. It's sugar. You can't have sugar. Okay. All right. Explore Azure Cloud Security Advantage. Traditional approach. Um, satisfies. What? Um, this diagram is not clearly what? I'm sorry. Somebody just designed this that thing, and we're like, you know what? My language says there's there's an issue, but it still made the picture. That's funny. Um, but anyway, yeah. So here, traditional approach, you um, you are responsible for things one at a time, right? So it's just basically you're like boop, 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 patching everything. No, no, patching everything like one at a time, and then this is Lily. This is Lily, Lily, Lily Pad. That's her actual name, and the other one is Loon. The Chihuahua mix is Loon. Hi. Okay. All right. So here, basically, when you go to cloud, you're basically shifting responsibility to the provider to make sure that basically everything you have is as secure as you possibly can. Okay. What security advantages are you expecting from leveraging the cloud? Well, that's a good question, person who wrote this. Perimeter security, like a physical security, 100%. leverage by using the cloud. You don't have to physically secure your infrastructure when you're fully cloud. And all the backend, like the way I see it personally when I use Azure as an identity provider, Azure AD as an identity provider, is that I don't have to store passwords. I don't have to store hashes. I am not responsible. I'm not responsible for all this stuff. I'm basically shifting the blame to Microsoft. So if there's a problem with leaked passwords, I am not responsible for that. This is all Microsoft responsibility as an identity provider, providing I implement the solution properly. So many things that their firewalls are good and all that stuff. So I'm gonna go through this one quickly because I don't have the mental bandwidth and the physical bandwidth for this. Azure Resource Manager is the deployment and management service for Azure. Yes, it provides you consistent management that allows you to create, update, and delete resources. What is happening here? Okay. When you take action through the portal, you blah, 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 the Resource Manager API handles the request. Because the same API handles all requests, you get consistent results and capabilities from all different tools. The functionality initially released through API should be represented in the portal within 180 days of the initial release. I will say that this is not always the case. 100% is not always the case. I would assume like a single API, yes, but something you can do through APIs that you can, like for example, renaming a virtual machine. You can do it through API, but you can't really do it through the portal. But anyway, understanding scopes. Oh, hey, management groups. All right, so Azure provides 4 levels of scope: management groups, subscriptions, resource groups, and resources. The following image is an example of these layers. Though not labeled as such, the blue cubes are resources. Well, the blue cubes are resource groups, buddy. I mean, that's the icon for the resource groups, but I get it. Okay, yeah, so management groups manage subscriptions, who manage resource groups, who manage resources. Okay. There are some important factors to consider when defining your resource group. All the resources in your group should share the same lifecycle. You deploy, update, delete them together. If one resource, such as a database server, needs to exist on a different deployment cycle, it should be in another resource group. Yes, because then you just lifecycle the resource group as opposed to the individual resources. Each resource can only exist in one resource group. Yes, I mean, Azure 101, yep. You can add or remove a resource to a resource group at any time. Yeah, okay. You can move a resource from one resource group to another group. Not always the case, especially. Is it always the case? I don't know that I agree with that statement, but anyway. A resource group can contain resources that are located in different regions. A resource group can be used to scope access control for administrative actions, definitely. A resource can interact with resources in other resource groups. Yes, this interaction It's common when the two resources are related but don't share the same life cycle. Yeah. All right. When creating, why does the resource group need a location? You may be wondering, why doesn't the resource group need a location? And if the resources can have different location than the resource group, why does the resource group location matter at all? And before I read this, my assumption from what I've been told is that logs and things like this, metadata, yeah. And so you have a location for storing all the metadata for compliance reasons. Yes, exactly. So, yeah. If the resource group region is temporarily available, you can't update resources in the resource group because the metadata isn't available. The resources in other regions will still function as expected, but you can't update them. Okay, management groups are an Azure resource to create flexible and very maintainable hierarchies within the structure of your environment. Management groups exist above the subscription level, and thus allowing subscriptions to be grouped together. This grouping facilitates applying policies and RBAC permissions to those management groups. Yeah, we have at work, we have privileged identity management, PIM, previous stream that I did on the AZ500, and we have something like this, not the same structure, but we have a management group like this where we have per region, and we group subscriptions like this. So not everybody has full access to everything. Um, so if I shouldn't be touching certain resources, the management group prevents me from touching the other resources. Value of management group resubscription provide user access to multiple subscriptions, allows for new organizational models and logically grouping of resources, allow for single assignment of controls that apply to all subscriptions, provide aggregated view above the subscription level. Yeah, this is great, especially for looking at your costs, right? So if you have, let's say, like, I don't know, development team, you're in charge of the development team, and you want to know how much does development team subscription cost. You put all the subscriptions in the same management group, and then you can see a scope for just the sorry, itchy nose, for just the development team. So you can just be like, hey guys, you're spending too much money, or you're not spending enough. Either way. Create a flexible hierarchy that can be updated quickly. Yep, the hierarchy does not need to model the organizations within hierarchy. The structure can easily be scaled up or down depending on your needs. Apply policies to any service. Create one RBAC assignment on the management group, which will inherit that access to all subscriptions. The Azure Resource Manager integrations that allow integration with other services, Azure Cost Management, Privileged Identity Management, and Defender for Cloud. By maintaining management groups, you can reduce your workload and reduce the risk of errors by avoiding duplicate assignments instead of applying multiple assignments across numerous resources and subscriptions. You can apply the one assignment to the one management group that contains the target resources. This will save time in the application of assignments, creates one point for the maintenance, and allows for better control on who can manage the assignment. Yeah. So, for example, if you're like, okay, we're going to create an ECUS management group, right? So we could apply policies and things like that, and access, right? I don't know, can you apply policies to a management group? I don't think you can, actually. This dog, come on. Okay, let's. Okay, well, whatever. Okay. All right. If I'm desperate for a job, would you say AWS would be better than GCP? What are the jobs around you? Um, um, yep. Azure also has bigger market share. Yeah, I would say desperate for a job and you need to focus on one cloud in particular to increase your odds of having a job. Yeah, do AWS, then Azure, then GCP, then everything else. Um, not it's not a guarantee. Honestly, I think mastery is greater than knowledge, if that makes sense. Um, I think if you can show mastery of a cloud through projects and things like that, um, yeah, for now, I think Azure will take over AWS. I think AWS just had a big head start, and that's why they're so big. But I think Azure is gonna take over. I think they're a much better product. If I'm applying for a job for Amazon, uh, that's not true. I completely disagree. I think AWS is the best. um, anyway, yeah, in market share, yeah. But yeah, I would say mastery. If you can master, if you can show your skills in a cloud, then yes, then that's the best. I would say Azure is much more user friendly than AWS in terms of yeah. I feel like Azure is more intuitive and more um, what was I gonna say? Azure is more intuitive. Okay, Azure has to because companies are doing hybrid deployments and ADN is already there. Yes, yes, because all the Microsoft ecosystem, you can have a full Microsoft stack at your company, which is impossible to have in AWS. Well, it's no, it is impossible. You can't get from the ground up um, Amazon hardware to software to all that stuff. So, and yes, Azure wins with resource groups. Just that. That being said, AWS with projects is not too. GCP with projects is not too bad. But yeah, I would say easier to learn is Azure. So if you want quick learning, Azure. If you want um, higher chances of getting a job, AWS. Either I don't think you can go wrong with either. Honestly, I think you will find a job. And honestly, like Rishab got a job at Google, and he does a lot of AWS stuff. So I think if you have, not that he doesn't know GCP, I don't know how much he knows of GCP, but um, I think if you're well versed in cloud and you understand how the overall architecture works in the cloud and how the processes and all that stuff, picking up a new cloud is not too hard, and companies really would hire you either way. I think. Anyway, configure Azure policies. Actually, you know what? Since we talked this long, let's see if we have management groups available here. I just wanted to see if you could apply. Um, Yeah. So I just wanted to see if we can do policies on management groups, because that would actually be pretty cool. I know you can do RBAC on management groups. Can you do policies? Oh, hey, look at that. Actually, it talks about this. Policy. Yes, that's awesome. So you can say like this group. Um, nice, nice, nice. So for example, you could say this group can't create anything in East US, right? Or you can be like, okay, this is the American group. They can only create resources in the US regions. So, whatever. Okay. Um, just a little bit of digression, but we're good. We're back on track. There are three main pillars of functionalities of Azure policies: enforcement and compliance, so real-time policy evaluation and enforcement, periodic and on-demand compliance and compliance report, VM in-guest policy. New, what is VM in-guest policy? You can apply policies inside the operating system. Is that what I'm saying? What I'm understanding? Um, okay, scale. Okay, apply policies to a management group with control across your entire organization. Apply multiple policies and aggregate policy states with initiatives, exclusion scope. I don't have the little mouse here. Remediation, real-time remediation. So it's cool because, for example, you can just be like, hey, no virtual machines will have public IP address. And anybody in the scope can't have public IP address. First pillar, real-time enforcement and assessment. For example, policy would block the creation of resources that are located outside of US region. Yeah. So it gets, every time you do an action, it will basically be evaluated against the policy. Applying policies at scale. Then with management groups, then you can have one policy to apply to multiple subscriptions and resources and resource groups. And you can also group policies together with policy initiatives. The third pillar is remediation by remediation policy. So you can apply a policy that after the fact and then remediate. You can force it to remediate your settings, or you can do it manually until something is compliant. All right, permissive policy permissions and custom policies. So Microsoft Authorization Policy Insight as operators, resource providers, resource policy contributor. The owner has full rights, obviously. Both contributors and reader can use all Azure Policy read operations, but contributors can also trigger remediation. Okay. If none of the built-in roles have required permissions, create a custom role. Okay, identify you by to create a custom policy, identify your business requirements, map each requirement to an Azure resource property, map the property to an alias, determine which effect to use, and compose a policy definition. Policy definition, it's all the definition, all the conditions and that are enforced and all that stuff, and the effect. The assignment is what's the scope for the policy. Can be management group to an individual resource. So from management group to subscriptions to resource group to resource. And resource type, actually. Policy parameter. So, for example, you can have a policy where it's like limit add a tag to this management group. All resources in the management group for billing purposes. Put a billing tag. You don't want to create a new policy for every single department you would have type of thing. So you can put parameters to be like, hey, so the tag for this management group is going to be Carolyn. The tag for the other management group is going to be Boris or whatever. And then you can see, you can change the tag without changing the policy. So, all right, enable RBAC. 6, we're halfway there. I'm thinking I'm gonna do 15 more minutes. I'm just very tired. 3 things are not 3 streams are not. All right. Ensuring that people they lose access and skirting the right balance between autonomy and central governments. Admin, application developer, billing admin. Oh, so you have so you have Azure AD roles, and you have Azure RBAC roles, owner contributor access, blah blah blah, and then subscription admin roles. And you can apply those roles up to the resource IAM. I think that's what they call it. Do I have another one? So if I take this, yeah, access control. Here, take this, and then you can have access control to the resource. It's all role-based. Okay. Note that the subscription is associated with only one Azure AD tenant. Also note that a resource group can have multiple resources, but is associated with only one subscription. Lastly, a resource can be bound to only one resource group. Yes. Okay. RBAC versus policies. Well, RBAC is like access, and policies is really what you should do. Yeah, policy basically RBAC and policies are mostly the same thing, except one applies to users, the other one to resources. So RBAC is user, policy is resources. Allowing user for RBAC, and it's all okay. So RBAC is identities, and policy is resources. Not really applying to people, but like with the resource. Okay. Figure built-in role. This is important. I don't know if it's going to be important for AZ500. I know it's important for the other certifications. Contributor. So now I see why most don't recommend taking AZ900. Yeah, AZ900 is not a requirement, and everything else is just reused all the time. So, yep. So all these are really overlapping very much. I saw a diagram. Why did you come back? Wait, you heard that Boris was back, and so you're like, I have to have Boris. Just say hi to Boris. Is that the one? I saw a diagram where it was basically it shows you what the subscriptions no. I don't know, there was something where it's like you have architect at the center, then you have yeah, I can't see it. But basically you would have architect at the center, then you have administrator, then you have developer, and then you have security. And basically, there's like overlap between security and they just overlap, and then you have architect in the center. So yeah, okay. Owner, important to remember, full access and um, set permissions. That's the one thing that owners can do that in no other role except like access, user access administrator can do. So you can create resource and assign RBAC. Um, Contributor, you can manage resources, but you cannot do RBAC. Um, and reader, you can only view resources. And if you have reader, you can't even read blob storage. Actually, you have to be contributor to read blob storage, the actual content. Custom roles, up to 5,000 custom roles. I think that's pretty fine. 2,000 Azure. What's special about Germany? I know China, but I don't know what's special about Germany. You cannot set assignable scope to the root scope. Yes, you can only define one management group. It's an assignable scope. You're like shedding like crazy. All right, resource logs. Oh yeah, don't do that. But you should. It's just to prevent accidental deletion or modification of certain resources. Only. Why do you have this? Only owners can do it, and user access administrator. Okay, so you're basically controlling access. So owner or access. Deploy Azure blueprints. Okay. Azure security and compliance blueprints plus. Okay, blueprints allows an engineer or architect to sketch a project's design parameters. Blueprints enables cloud architects and central information technology groups to define reportable set of Azure resources that implements and adheres to an organizational standards, patterns, and requirements. Azure Propkins make it possible for development teams to rapidly build and set up new environments with trust they are building within organizational. Blah, blah, blah. Blueprints are a declarative way to orchestrate the deployment of various resource templates and other artifacts such as role assignments, policy assignments. Yeah, blueprints you're basically doing it's like Terraform, it's infrastructure as code, basically. Okay. Management plan. When you create a new subscription, it's hosted on your account Azure AD tenant. If you want to give others access to your subscription as resource review, you need to invite them to join your tenant. Doing so helps you control access, manage API access to Azure subscriptions and resources. When you publish APIs or API management, it's easy and common to get access to those APIs by using subscription keys. Client applications that consume the publish API, that's too much. Okay, people. Navigating in Azure. Let's just do knowledge check. Let's just go there. Let's just do this. The company hires a new administrator and needs to create a new Azure AD user account for them. New hire must be able to read, write resource deployments they're responsible for, read Azure AD access permissions, They should not be able to view Azure subscription information. What should be configured to make this work? I would say contributor. Yeah, I would say contributor at the resource group level. I mean, you could also do the resource level, but resource group would be right. Yeah. Which of the following would be a good example of when to use resource lock? An express route circuit with connectivity back to your on-premise network. Okay, a virtual machine used as a storage account used to store images processed in the development environment. Yeah, the express route, production, stuff. Yep. And company has 3 virtual machines, VM1, VM2, VM3, in a resource group. The help desk hires a new employee. The new employee must be able to modify the settings on VM3, but not on VM1 and 2. The solution must minimize the administrative overhead. What should you set up contributor role on VM3? I wouldn't move, honestly, I would not move VM3 to a different resource group just for that one user. I think if you move VM, so if you assign on the resource group, then you have access to 1, 2, 3. So that's not the correct answer. If you assign the contributor role on VM3, then you're good. If you move to a new resource group and assign contributor role on VM3, oh yeah, no, that's ridiculous because you're basically doing the same thing except you're Yep, I think that moving the VM defeats the person. Yes, let's defeat the person. I think we both need some energy in us. Yep. So here we're looking at contributor because I mean, if you're doing the same thing except you're just adding more steps, this is a need. There is a need to target policies and reviews. No, I know what you meant. Reviews spend budgets across several subscriptions you manage. What should be created for the subscription? A management group. Can you do a billing group? I don't think a billing group is a thing. Okay, manager asks for an explanation of how Azure resource groups, how you, and a manager asks for an explanation of how Azure uses resource groups. Which of the following capabilities is a feature of how Azure uses resource groups? Resource can be in multiple resource groups, false. Resource can be moved from one resource group to another resource group, true. Resource groups can be nested, false. So there you go. So check your answers. Woo! All right, that was a long. That was supposed to be a lot longer, but I honestly don't have the energy to go through this. So, yeah. That was something. I think I'm gonna take a nap, watch some TV, take a nap, call it a week, and we're gonna be back next week with more study sessions. Definitely, probably 104 or 204 or whatever else anybody else wants. Probably we'll do a coding session, live coding. PowerShell new challenge came up on Iron Scripter, so we'll do that. And yeah, thank you, Boris. Thank you, everyone, for watching this stream and the other 2 streams earlier. I appreciate it. Um, and yeah, so I'll see you in the next video. Bye.